Greetings, living at your finest health champions. How are you doing? How's the weekend? So this is Dr. Babs, your wellness strategist. I am back for the concluding episode of our Wise Up Weekend. We started yesterday where we're talking about this amazing topic, Nourishing Nutrition, your path to health. The month of September is a month where we set awareness for whole grains. We set awareness to increase our fruits and veggies. And so I'm taking advantage of this month before it slips away to just empower my community about the benefits of a whole food plant-based diet. So I'm glad that you're listening in and you're tuning in. We're going to dive into it. Yesterday, we spoke about the current state of affairs, what's going on with our diet, where 90% of our diet is actually processed meals. We eat dairy, packaged foods, all of that. And only 10% is coming from our fruits and veggies. So today, we're going to take a deeper dive into what a whole food plant-based diet is and what it means for our overall health. So I want you to stay tuned. I want you to, get your pen and your pencil and paper, because we're going to have that conversation about the different foods and how we can incorporate it into our diet. So a little bit about me, and then we'll get started. Yes, so welcome back. Dr. Babs here. We are going to just dive right in, talk about whole food plant-based diet. What does that mean? We started off yesterday talking about the current state of affairs and why we have an increase of chronic diseases. So for every 10 people, 6 of them will have one chronic disease, and 4 out of 10 will have 2 or more. And we're finding out that poor diet, is actually the number one reason why we have lifestyle-related diseases, almost 80% of it. So we want to change that narrative. And the way we can do it is paying attention to our nutrition. What are we putting in our mouths? What are we feeding ourselves? So the whole food plant-based diet research has shown in so many ways and fashion and form that it changes the narrative of chronic diseases, because it gives us what our body needs, all the nutrients, all the fiber. And so we're going to just take it one at a time and discuss it. So let's start off with what actually comprises of a whole food plant-based diet. So it's whole grains, and whole grains examples would be oats, barley, quinoa, brown rice. A few things that I was also learning myself that I had no idea exist, but this is all part of learning and growing, because I wanted to be healthier. I wanted to get rid of all the medications that my body naturally can heal through the foods that I eat. Then I started learning about what it means to have a whole grain. Some people are afraid of carbs, but carbs is not the enemy as long as you're eating the right carbs. All carbs are not treated the same. So whole grain is where you have the whole grain. So nothing is stripped out of it. Nothing is added. It just comes as it is, with the fiber, with the protein, with the fluids, everything, the water, just everything that is needed for your body to strive and heal and grow. So that is whole grains. Another aspect of a whole food plant-based diet is beans and legumes. And unfortunately, we're not eating enough of that. That on its own contains, just a cup of beans actually contains about 30 grams of fiber. And our minimal requirement for fiber is about 25 for females and 38 for men. Fiber is so essential. It helps get rid of cholesterol. It helps keep us full. It helps our bowel move. So eating beans and legumes, very, very essential for overall health. Another aspect of a whole food plant-based diet is nuts and seeds. The seeds, when we talk about flax seeds, chia seeds, really what it contains is omega-3 that is helpful for our brain, helpful for our heart. A lot of people are concerned about memory, and just making sure that we feed our bodies the right nutrients that is needed for the membrane healing and membrane growth of, the brain and the heart definitely makes a whole lot of difference. Now, to the nuts, these are healthy fats. A lot of times we say, it's the fat that is making us fat, it's the sugar making us fat. Again, all the micronutrients, they're not all created the same way. So we're talking about carbs, protein, fat, they're all needed in our plate, but the right choice. So it's the quality of what we're eating that matters. So with the nuts, we get a lot of, the healthy fats that really help to mobilize the vitamins and the minerals. It definitely gives us energy, keeps us full. So these are the aspects that we need to pay attention. Of course, when it comes to fruits and veggies, as I mentioned, only 3% of the population is actually eating the minimum amount of veggies that are required. Again, our veggies, what does it contain? It has all the phytochemicals, that's the antioxidants, the anti-inflammatories, all the things that make our body strive, that makes us feel energized, because our cells feel happy, not to even talk about the gut microbiome. So the gut that we have is responsible for so many things. It's responsible for our mood, because it produces almost 70 to 80% of serotonin, which is a mood regulator. So if we eat proper foods, feed our good bacteria, we get a good response. If we're eating a lot of packaged and processed foods, unfortunately, the bad bacteria is having a feast. It's enjoying itself and it's causing more inflammation. So these are the things that make up a whole food plant-based diet, and we need to prioritize these on our plate. Now, I want to share with you what that looks like in picture, because for me, picture paints 1,000 words, right? So let me show you what that looks like. So let's start off with this picture here. So this just emphasize what I'm talking about. We want to stay full longer, right? We want to feel healthy and strong. You see how the stomach, this is the stomach wall. So this is oil. When we talk about oil, it doesn't expand the receptors, the stomach receptors. So you feel hungry. And that's why when you're eating French fries or you're eating any of those things that taste good, but does the body no good? You're eating so much of it to even feel full. Let's look at cheese. Look at meat. So even though, yes, animal product does have protein, and a lot of us, until I started learning all of this, I thought the only place I get my protein from is animal product. But no, we get protein even from fruits and from veggies. We get them from our beans. We get them from our rice. Now, with meat, though, even though it does have protein, it does have saturated fat. And saturated fat is the one that clogs up our arteries. That is the number one reason why we have heart disease. So we need to emphasize eating more of, the fiber foods, which have content of water, which keeps us full. And then you can see that in the picture. When you eat fruits and veggies, it doesn't take, look at that. You can eat as much calorie less, but you feel full. Another picture that I want to share with you definitely is what that food looks like. All right, so let's take a look at what that food looks like, because you want to see a good picture so that you get a sense of what we're talking about. So a whole food plant-based diet, those are the fats and the oils, right? You see the legumes, and legumes could be, it's just a fancy word of, like saying lentils, beans. A lot of us are familiar with beans, but chickpeas falls under this. We have adamani. There are a lot of things here that I'm learning too, because I want to stay healthy with my family. We want to get rid of being on medications with their multiple side effects. There is an adage that says if our diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. But if it's right, medicine is of no need. So leafy greens, so important. It says about 2 to 3 servings per day. Our grains, definitely emphasizing that. So that is exactly what we're referring to. These are the things that keep us stronger every day, keeps us striving, makes us full of energy. It stabilizes our sugar. We're not spiking. I mean, if you look back over days where you eat a ton of processed foods, right, and no fiber in it, because fiber is only found in plants, you will be honest to say that you just have like all these highs and lows, and you're just feeling, what is going on with me? It's because of what we're eating. If our body doesn't recognize it as food because it's engineered, right? It's made in the engineering lab, chemicals, preservatives, addictive substances, your body can't recognize it. So it does not process it well, and it just forms inflammation. So it's attacked as a foreign object, and it goes into the joints. But let's go over this before I begin to wrap up, because I want to make sure that it's very clear how we can incorporate each of these into our daily meals. So this way, being plant forward, having a plant forward diet is so important when we're talking about health. So the H stands for high fiber foods. Always make sure when you sit to eat, whether it's breakfast, lunch, or dinner, or if you're snacking, that your food is a high fiber food. And it's fiber by itself, not fiber added on as much as possible, majority of your plates, right? So there's the 75-25 rule, that 75% of your plate is, fiber, because again, it reduces chronic diseases, cancer, particularly colon cancer, breast cancer, ovarian cancer. As I mentioned, it does get rid of toxins and cholesterol. So what are some of the foods that are high fiber? Definitely the 4 categories that I spoke about: whole grains, our fruits and veggies, and definitely our beans and legumes. All right, so I do my best to at least have 1 serving of beans, and I always make sure that I have my leafy greens, at least 1 serving, and then any other veggie that I'm having is one that is high content water and has fiber. Now, what's about our E? E means embrace a variety of veggies. So important because of its antioxidant properties, right? It again decreases all those chronic diseases that we want to get rid of. And most importantly, it helps with our gut health, and it helps to fight cancer. Whenever we focus majority of our meals on animal products, as I mentioned yesterday, if you didn't watch that, if you weren't with me yesterday, please watch the video on the replay. It speaks about how the processed deli meats and the bacon and all those things, hot dogs, they're number 1 carcinogen, and they increase the risk of cancer. Now, animals, they haven't actually, they said probable, but again, reducing how much of animal product you're eating, because they have shown that it does raise the IGF-1, which is called the insulin-like growth factor. And unfortunately, that is likened to cancer. It does promote cancer. All right, so we need to minimize that, because again, it has high saturated fat, increases our cholesterol, causes a lot of other chronic diseases that we don't want to have. Now, what's the A part of health? Adjust to whole grains. Let us adjust to whole grains. When you eat your food, just remember that the food industry does not have your best interest at heart. You have to advocate for yourself and your family's health. I had to do that in my home when we had all sorts of chronic diseases just all over the place because of what we were eating. We had to just inventory of what we were eating. Was our food packaged and processed? Were all the nutrients out of the whole grains taken out of it? So that's why we say avoid as much as possible the white rice instead of have the brown rice, because it's compact. The grain is compact. So oats it's full. You don't have anything stripped out of it and nothing added into it from the industry or from the lab. All right, so let's prioritize whole grains. It definitely helps to reduce your sugar spikes that occur. If you eat something that is fast digesting, you will have sugar spikes. But if it's slow to digest, you feel full, you're not just eating and snacking all the time. And of course, it doesn't have all those addictive things and chemicals that are added in it. Anytime you're reading your label, if you see ingredients that are more than 5 and you can't recognize it, it is definitely nothing whole about it. Now, what's about the L? I just spoke about legumes. So we live longer with legumes. There's been multiple studies. If you've heard about the blue zones, people that live in those areas actually live into their late 90s and 100s, and not just living, but living well, living healthy, not having all the chronic diseases that we see in our today's society. So legumes, as I mentioned, high in protein and fiber. So it's not just animal product alone that you get protein. You have the legumes that don't have all those cholesterol that you would get, the dietary cholesterol that can increase your risk for clogging your arteries. Legumes, another thing that they do, is a great source of minerals and vitamins. So if you're having your rice, you can have your beans by the side. Make sure that you have that, again, as you can have it in soups. Your beans could be in soups, could be a main dish. Several ways that we use it at home to make it fun. All right, so definitely prioritize legumes. T, taste the richness in fruits. Fruits, I am loving fruits more and more because as a sweet tooth, I don't want to rely on sugary things that are just chemical based and so addictive that I want more and more of it. I'm never satisfied. I used to go from just eating one donut to 2 donuts to 3 donuts. I'm just not satisfied. It's because of the things that are in there. And unfortunately, it's just calorie dense, nothing nutritious about it, and not serving my body well. I was having a lot of chronic inflammation, joints, but I'm learning to enjoy the richness in fruits because fruit has the fiber, it has the water content, it keeps you full, so definitely let's prioritize our fruits. And then the last alphabet in the health, Nourishing Nutrition, your path to health. The H is help your brain and heart with nuts, seeds, and fat. All right, a lot of omega-3 fatty acids that we need to have in our diets that will help with just the way the brain is functioning at its optimal. If without that, it's just sluggish. It's not getting the nutrients that it needs to strive. And then, of course, you decrease the risk of Alzheimer's and heart disease, and you reduce inflammation. So with all of this, I hope that you get the feel of why it's so necessary that we prioritize whole food plant-based diet. My recommendation is wherever you are, start gradually. So if you're somebody that you don't eat veggies, there are a lot of people that just don't like veggies, the variety, they just feel, it's boring. Well, allow yourself to explore, right? There's several ways you can make it, saute, you can bake, there are tons of resources, and I will add those resources in the comments. There's one called Full Plate Living, tons of ideas, and I'll just make sure that I enter some resources that you can avail yourself of. Just have an open mind. Understand your why. Why are you doing this? So if you're somebody that only has once a week, well, maybe in just every meal, just try to add one veggie and add one fruit, and then add one serving of whole grains and one serving of beans. But start where you are. The goal is when you feel full and you're eating the right foods and you're feeling strong and you're feeling fabulous in yourself, living at your finest, feeling whole, vibrant, and healthy, and you go to your doctor and they do your labs and it's improving, it will definitely give you the motivation to keep at it, right? And then you can cut back on all those other things. So definitely I want you to prioritize your health. This month is fruits and veggie month. It's whole grain month. Pay attention to what you're eating. If your foods are not made from the soil, made from the ground, if it is made in a box, it is definitely not going to be nutritious for you. But if it's made by, you pick it up and you make it yourself, it definitely will sustain you long term. So thank you so very much for staying tuned and listening. I want to end by saying, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food. This is the way that the body needs to strive and just grow and heal, and so that we can be free of these lifestyle-related chronic diseases. So I want you to know that you deserve to live at your finest. You're worth it. You're certainly worth it. And together we can change the narrative about chronic diseases in our communities. A lot of times people say, well, to have a plant-based diet is expensive. But on the contrary, beans is actually not expensive, even if it's that you have to, some of these veggies, if you have to get frozen, if you have to get canned and you rinse out the salt, it's just understanding, changing that mindset and being open-minded, because there's tons of data that supports the benefits of plant-based diets. And so you want to be more plant-based forward. You want to add more of the plant. Again, whole grains, fruits, veggies, beans and legumes, and of course your nuts and seeds. So again, thanks so much for staying tuned. I hope that you will share this video with your friends and family, and let's just change ourselves from the inside out. All right, take care. God bless.